Hello, everyone. Today, we will continue our series on learning from the world champions, and we're going to look at the game by world champion number 4, Alexander Alekhine. Alekhine, to be honest, is not my favorite person. He was a very good player, but as a person, he had some interesting issues. Um, some of the more fun stories about him involve occasionally getting drunk, occasionally being an anti-Semite, and also picking and choosing who to play for World Championship. As a player, though, he was very, very good. And we will look at a fun game which he played. This was a Prophet Simul, Alekhine with the white pieces, and we have e4, e5, d4. The center game. Okay. When your opponent plays this move, it's best to take, which is what black does. And white has several choices. He can take back, and after the knight coming to c3, he can drop the queen back. Or, like in this game, Alekhine plays a little bit more ambitiously. He tries to sacrifice a pawn, and perhaps he's going to try to play the damage gambit. For example, if black takes, he can play here, sacrifice another pawn. A lot of the time, when your opponent plays like this, it makes sense to not grab too much material, but to make sure that your development is solid. And this is what black does. He plays d5 immediately. And the logic here is black is challenging the center. So if white takes this pawn, black takes here. If white takes here, black takes back, and he's absolutely fine. And so Alekhine decides to take this pawn. Okay, black takes, and now white has a choice to take with the pawn of the queen. It is better to take with the pawn. The reason is white will have an isolated pawn anyway. So let's say if you took with the queen, black would trade. And the thing is, isolated pawn without queens on the board is not the greatest thing to have. Because isolated pawns give you an advantage. You have more space, you have control with these squares, you have these open lines, but of course this pawn is weak. It's good for attacking, but it's weak. Without queens on the board, there will be a lot less attacking. So this is why, if you're white, you want to keep the queens on the board, and then perhaps you can take advantage of this queen being here by bringing out your pieces. Okay. By the way, the key rule here, if you're black, you want to trade some minor pieces. So if you imagine all the bishops are gone, all the knights are gone, it's just queens and rooks, it's a lot easier for black to play. He can just focus on the pawn. White would prefer not to trade. Okay. Black checks, which is reasonable. White has to be careful how he blocks. He doesn't want to block on this square because this pawn will fall. So he has to play knight c3. Of course, this queen is not being attacked because the knight is pinned. So black develops a knight, puts more pressure on this pawn. Alekhine defends, makes perfect sense, developing pieces. Knight f6, black is developing quickly. Bishop e2, getting ready to castle. Black castles, white castles. So far so good, and notice when white castle there is no pin anymore, so black decides to take. Which is okay, but it does change the situation a little bit. White pawn structure becomes a little bit different. This is a backward pawn. It's a little bit hard to attack it. This pawn becomes a little bit stronger. And also white has two bishops. Especially this bishop, which right now is kind of blocked. He might play a role a little bit later. So let's see how this continues. Black plays b6. Which is not terrible, but the question is, do you really... I mean, the bishop here makes sense, but it does take two moves. And then black will probably try to move the knight and play c5. If he's able to pull this off, it doesn't take him a lot of moves, he will be okay. But this might not have been the best idea. Because right now white gains time on the queen immediately. And right now he has very, very nice pawns, controlling all these squares. So pawn c4. The queen drops back, queen d8. And now d5, gain even more space. So that was a bit of an issue for black, because now he's being driven backwards. The question is, what does he do with the knight? Well, we don't want to go home. If we go here, we might have to do something like this. This takes a while. So he goes to e7, which seems like a reasonable square. And now very nice move by white. Now that we move the pawns, we put a knight over here. And look at white's position. We have more space. We have a lot of control. Our knight controls a lot of squares as well. And also, it's not easy for black bishop to do things. If he comes here, we just trade. We can just trade, and then we'll have two bishops for two knights. Black should maybe consider doing something like this. But white has more space and much easier development. Black decided to play bishop b7, which seems to make sense. He might try to play c6, but right now the bishop is blocked. And here Alekhine comes up with an idea. This move obviously is good. That's a very, very good bishop. Bishop b2. Black has a dream. He wants to open up this diagonal. So pawn c6 makes sense. And now this is instructive. Alekhine improves his other bishop. And look at the activity of the white pieces. He has two amazing bishops, very good knight. What is his point, though? It looks like this pawn over here is being attacked 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are only 2 defenders. So what is happening? Well, let's find out. One takes. Okay, now Alekhine does not take back. Instead, he completes his development. Very active pieces. This is very important. Black cannot take this pawn for now because of the spin. White has a good rook. Incredible bishops. Very good knight in the middle of the board. Black is up a pawn, but it's very hard to play this position if you're black. Black activates his rook, which seems to make sense. And now very nice move by white. He plays queen c1. There is a specific point, and the point is white is trying to bring his queen to the king side. This looks like a weird move, but it makes perfect sense. Black continues his development with rook b8. He covers his bishop because he would like to be able to take and trade. If black trades off a few pieces before he dies, that would be an accomplishment. But queen here. And now white already has some serious threats. For example, he would love to open up this diagonal. And one of the best ways to do it is knight e6. The logic is if black takes, white takes this knight, and he is hitting this. So this is getting very, very scary. Also, depending on what this knight does, sometimes this knight can go here. That's also a potential issue. Also, sometimes we can get rid of this knight. That's something to consider. And again, white pieces are very, very, very active. This is really good. You're down a pawn, but it doesn't matter. So let's see what happened next. Black got worried, justifiably, about this and played knight g6. Black is trying his best, but more pressure. Knight f5. We're improving our knight. We are looking here. In some lines, if the queen moves, we can sacrifice and take here. This could get scary. Also, in some lines, we might be able to take. If he takes with a pawn, our queen can show up over here, hitting this square. The problem right now is he can take with the queen. But there are already a lot of threats connected to this square. So knight f5, black trades rooks. He's nervous. Rook e1, rook e1. Now white takes back, and black takes the pawn. Okay, he's up to pawns, but it doesn't quite matter. Why? Well, let's see. My trades bishops. This takes the rook away from the back rank. That could be important, because now everything is hanging by the edge. White now takes the knight. Black has two choices. He has to take back. In the game, he takes with the queen. If he takes with the pawn, I'm going to give you a little bit of time and ask you to find me the winning move for white. Most of you probably found the first move, which is bishop queen h6 that he made. But then you were probably stumped by what to do if black stops us. But if he does, we have a beautiful, beautiful tactic. After queen here, we play rook e8, which attacks the queen, pins the queen, so it cannot take our queen. And if the queen takes, then we simply checkmate. If the queen doesn't take, this is pinned, we checkmate anyway. And this is beautiful. In the game, black took with the queen. Okay, and now I'm going to give you another couple of seconds and find me a beautiful continuation for white, which leads to a crushing victory. Okay, this one was harder. So most of you probably looked at this check and you said, okay, he blocks. Now what? Well, now we would like to be able to sacrifice and then be able to play queen here checkmate. That's hard, but it's doable. So the second move is check. If the king moves, the king doesn't protect the knight anymore, so we will checkmate. And so queen takes, and then after the queen takes, we can make our sacrifice. So let's look at it on the board. Rook check. The knight has to block. Knight check. If the king moves, rook takes is checkmate. So the only other move is queen takes. Obviously, there is a pin, so the pawn cannot take. After queen takes, now we have the sacrifice followed by a checkmate. So king takes, checkmate. This is a very interesting game. This is what we call dynamic chess. Dynamic chess is where you want to make sure your pieces are active. You want to make sure that there are a lot of possibilities, a lot of options for your chess pieces, and this creates very interesting positions. Alekhine was quite good at that, which is why he was able to stay on the top for a very, very long time. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, please subscribe. Happy New Year, and I will be back soon. Thank you.